Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? It's good to see you all. Hey, Daisy. Hi, Pat Trent. Lynn, it's good to see you as always. Hi, Heather Marie. Hey, John. Welcome. Hey, Mayor Party of 5. Hey, Tech Death. How are you? I'm glad you're here. Hey, Daz. Hi, Lynn. It's good to see you guys. Hi, Rosewood. Hey, Melodramatic Monday. I'm really glad everybody's here. Hi, Tuesday, Sarah Walker. A lot's been happening in the last 24 hours in Delphi. Hey, Truth and Justice. Thank you for joining. Hey, Bill Taylor. Good to see you as well. I have a lot to say tonight, so bear with me. Just letting people get in. Oh, Daisy, don't I know it? It has been a week. So much going on out there. Hey, Michelle, so glad to have you. Love to you, my dear. So, the first couple things I want to get out of the way. I put out a community post today regarding my post that I made last night when the murder sheet dropped the new documents regarding Ron Logan. My first instinct when it was dropped was, oh my gosh, I can't wait to listen. I can't wait to read it. And so I posted it, and I posted the link to everybody. Hey, Jess Pam. Hey, Mrs. Thang 65. So glad you're here. Hi, Jess Pam. I'm so glad you finally did. Hey, Perry. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. So I posted it, and I didn't sleep well. And when I woke up this morning, all I could think about was how damaging that information was to this case. And how releasing that, especially now, is just not good for the case. And I quickly deleted the post with the link to the Murder Sheets podcast. I'm sorry for everyone who'd commented on it. My intention was not to get rid of your comments. But I have told everyone when I started my channel, I wanted to be a channel of facts and a channel of integrity. And I don't feel that I was being that by leaving that out there. By jumping on the train of let's hurry up and, start talking about all this new information. And everybody is. There have been tons and tons of lives about it already. A lot of the big YouTubers have already been talking about it. Late last night, before I went to bed, I got sent the documents. I actually have the documents. I read through them, and yes, they're redacted, so people's names are not in there, and there's no addresses of those individuals. But there's still so much information that are in those documents that should not be in the public right now, in my opinion. And so we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. I know that there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with me on this, and I'm willing to take that. I've got broad shoulders. I'm willing for those people to come at me, but this is wrong. And I think Kelsey said it best in her tweet last night. Just to put out something that is quote unquote breaking news for clicks and subscribers, and to grow a channel or to grow your podcast is unethical. We are dealing with real cases, real people. This isn't a game. We're not sitting around the table drinking beers and playing Clue. These are real people. And I think people lose sight of that. And I'm sorry that it may come across that I'm a little bit upset, because I am. Hey, Jennifer, thanks for coming, dear. I know you don't feel well. I just can't stress enough to you guys that this matters, and how we tell their story matters. And it's not just about being the first one to have the scoop or the first one to get information like this out there. We've all wanted more information for 5 years on Delphi. Del Bell, thank you so much for joining. That is so kind of you. So happy to have you as a member on my channel. Thank you. I just feel like we need to take a step back, and we need to say, why should this information about Ron Logan, who is now deceased, be out there? Do you not think for 1 second, if they thought that Ron Logan had anything to do with these murders, that they would not have had this wrapped up long ago? I think that the information that they brought out in this was very, very relevant in 2017. I believe that that's when this was relevant. It's not relevant now. And they were trying to, as Jennifer said, they were trying to get a warrant back then. So yeah, exactly, Heather Marie. Why now? Why would somebody, and you know what's amazing to me, the murder sheet acts as if this is their document. You know, it's got their watermark on it again. Who puts their watermark on legal documents from the court? Those aren't their documents. Those are the state's documents from Indiana. I mean, it just makes me mad. I'm sorry. You will notice that I have deleted my interview live stream that I did with the murder sheet after they dropped the first Anthony Schatz information. I have a different opinion of them now. And I'm not going to just hammer them like some people might want me to. But I will say this. We're not just dealing with YouTubers here. We're dealing with an investigative journalist, a professional, and we're dealing with a lawyer, a professional, who supposedly went to law school, got a degree in ethics. And this is not ethical, in my opinion. I don't know how it possibly could be. So it just bothers me. And you know, why would you put a watermark on that document? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's trying to let everybody know that it's yours and that you did it. And you know what? There are a ton of people in this community that already had those documents and have chosen not to release them. And I'm serious about this, you guys. There are a lot of people in this community who had those same documents and have chosen not to release them. Because for one, it's not relevant anymore. And, yeah, it told us some things about the crime scene, but stop and think about that. Is that something that is going to hurt this investigation down the road? Are those things that we were not supposed to be privy to? Like clothing being taken? Like bodies being moved? Why do we, the public, need to know these things? We may want to know them, but we don't need to know them. I think that there is a lot of things that are going on here, and we'll get into that. But I first want to talk about corruption in Delphi and Carroll County, because I think it all ties in to exactly what could be going on here possibly. I mean, I know how human beings are, and when there is a vacuum of information, so there's no information coming, it's just a vacuum, and we want information. We've all heard for 5 years, why aren't they releasing more information? Why are they not releasing more information? We want more information, but we don't need it. And quite frankly, in an ongoing investigation, we're not entitled to it like some people think we are. Can one of my mods drop my email address, please? Just Pam would like it. So let's move on. Doug Carter said, I'm driven by their memory and their family in that community. Remember, it was on the heels of the Florida fires, which occurred in November of 2016. Such a devastating thing, that fire that killed those 4 little girls. Those 2 cases in rural Indiana represent evil in America. The city of Delphi is any small town USA. How the community came together to support the family and friends and eventually law enforcement was amazing, truly. But not for small town America. This is what small town America does. Tobe Lesenby said in an early interview that the community was safe in what's taking place in Carroll County. Really, Tobe? The community was safe? How can he say that? I go back to that. He was not the only one who said it. Hey, Gonzo. So glad you're here. Thanks for joining. Thank you. I hope so. I know that this is going to probably get a lot of pushback, but you know what? I am ready. I'm ready for it. So thanks, Gonzo, for being here and giving me support. So yeah, Tobe's sitting out there telling us after Abby and Libby's murder that the community doesn't need to be worried. We're safe. Even though there is a double murderer running around loose that hasn't been caught. So I just don't get it. Do you guys get it? Why would a sheriff say that? Hey, Cold Truth. Good to see you. But anyway, something to me smells in Carroll County. Something really stinks. On May 6, 2022, plaintiffs Sue Albright and Angela Sadlow filed a civil complaint against Carroll County, Indiana, and the Carroll County Board of Elections. The complaint states they are calling for an investigation of the Carroll County Board of Elections, the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Tobe Lesenby, Sheriff candidate Tony Liggett, the Flora Volunteer Fire Department, the Financial Builders Federal Credit Union of Kokomo, and municipal employees of Carroll County for engaging in political activity prohibited by state and federal law. The plaintiffs allege that Tobe Lesenby, Tony Liggett, and municipal employees of Carroll County have committed numerous ethical state and federal violations related to a partisan primary election, including violations of Indiana Code IC 3-14-1-17 and the Federal Hatch Act. In the United States of America, the Hatch Act is a federal law that was passed in 1939 that limits certain political activities of federal employees, as well as some state, District of Columbia, and local government employees who work in connection with federal funded programs. The law's purpose is to ensure that federal programs are administered in a nonpartisan manner to protect federal employees from political coercion in the workplace, to ensure that federal employees are advanced based on merit and not based on political affiliation. The Hatch Act is enforced by the Office of Special Counsel, or the OSC, which is a unique governing body that is charged with enforcing a number of different rules. The Hatch Act is a workplace guideline, and violating it is not a crime, but there are stiff penalties, including job removal, debarment of federal employment for up to 5 years. Agencies are at risk of losing their federal funding if they don't remove the employee or at least penalize them with fines, suspensions. These are all consequences of breaking this rule. It does not just cover politicians, of course. Public health and welfare, law enforcement, fire, agriculture, and civil defense are all included. The Hatch Act is crucial in helping to ensure the execution of government programs for all Americans in a manner which is not partisan. This is for the benefit of all of us, and why the Hatch Act was put into place in the first place. The OSC is charged with investigating and overseeing possible violations at the federal level. So, now that we are familiar with the Hatch Act and what it does, let's jump ahead to the third point of the lawsuit. In the months preceding the May 2022 primary election in Delphi, Indiana, in Carroll County, Tony Liggett and Tobe Lesenby violated the Federal Hatch Act by utilizing agency resources to advance Tony Liggett's candidacy and by encouraging, suggesting, or implying that subordinate employees support Tony Liggett's campaign for sheriff in Carroll County, which is coercion. They utilized agency resources to advance Liggett's candidacy, and by encouraging, suggesting, or implying that subordinate employees support Tony Liggett's campaign for sheriff. Their actions created the impression that Tony Liggett is running for sheriff in an official capacity with the authority of Tobe Lesenby and the agency behind him. In doing so, they violated the Federal Hatch Act as outlined in 5 CFR subscript 151.121. A state or local officer or employee may not use his official capacity or authority or influence for the purpose of interfering with or affecting the results of an election or a nomination for an office, or directly or indirectly attempt to coerce, or command or advise a state or local officer or employee to pay, lend, or contribute to anything of value to a political party, committee, organization, or agency, or person for a political purpose. They posted a flyer that showed the full support of the officers that are currently employed in Carroll County, showing their support for Tony Liggett for sheriff. These flyers were actually ads that were bought in the Carroll County Comment, the newspaper, and they were placed there by the sheriff's office. There was one bought by the Flora Fire Department and ran in the newspaper. And there was also the flyers posted in the work area and workspaces of these agencies. This is a direct violation of the Hatch Act. There was a social media post made that said, this is by Tony Liggett, by the way, "I take great pride in my leadership, that I have the support of nearly every active law officer that works in Carroll County. It's utterly amazing. I am humbled by this list of names. Thank you all." This is Daisy. Thank you so much for your super sticker. Thank you. Thank you. How kind of you. Hey, Digital. Good to see you. Spencer Kingery responds, "You have my support as law enforcement, as an elected official, and as a citizen of our county. It is important to note that Spencer Kingery is a law enforcement officer as well as a member of the Delphi City Council and the Delphi Board of Works. He is an elected position. That is a direct violation of the Hatch Act." The flyer was posted as the advertisement in the comment, which reads, shockingly, "No one saw anything wrong with this." They even write, "Endorsed by law enforcement officers that serve Carroll County," below the picture of themselves, along with all of their names, including First Sergeant Jerry Holman of the Indiana State Police, who is specifically in charge of the Delphi task force looking into the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Clint McClelland, who is related to Nick McClelland, the prosecutor for Carroll County, who is now on the Delphi police force, is pictured shaking hands with Brooke McCain, who is the new chief of police. Josh Dissinger and Drew Yoder are the two officers who responded to the Flora fire on November 21st, 2016, that took the lives of Kiana, 11, Kiara, 9, Carrielle, 7, and Kiani, 5. 4 young sisters. Speaking of Drew Yoder, the second social media post, that's their Exhibit C, was made on Facebook by Drew. And Cindy Fuller posts, Liggett is going door to door in the entire county to register voters that have voted in the last few years. I loved that he took the time to do this. I was very interested in voting for him until he said he was being endorsed by Tobe. Drew Yoder replies, have you seen this article today? Yes, that is correct. A vast majority of officers in this county are pushing to get this great man elected for sheriff. Tony has the heart, the mind, the leadership that this county needs to keep pushing forward in this world. Tony's devotion and leadership to this county is something that is wanted and needed. This county has suffered some horrendous incidents since I started almost 7 years ago. Tony, among others, were the first at my bedside when I was fighting for my life. Tony was always there for me during my healing process and the struggles that ensued after the Flora fire. It also should be noted that the Flora Fire Department funded one of these ads in the Carroll County Comet. So it really begs the question, how all of these individuals and municipalities surrounding both of these homicide cases, Delphi and Flora, are so interconnected politically. That the fact that these two cases both remaining unsolved, I think it's time we start asking some questions, don't you? When you consider that one of the co-owners of the home where Galen Rose lived with her children was co-owned by Joshua S. Ayers, who was also a politician and the president of the Flora Town Council in 2016. Doug Carter said, he does not believe anyone set that fire to kill those 4 little girls intentionally. He just does not believe that. I hope I'm not proven wrong. I think it was a consequence of a bad choice. And again, I hope someone will talk to us one day. Joshua Ayers and his buddy Troy Helderman owned the property they were renting to Galen and her family. And let's just say this. They kind of have a sketchy history in recent years of properties that they own just bursting up in flames without any explanation. Yes, this is not the first time this happened to them. Both of these men have HVAC mechanical, and plumbing certifications, and they are very familiar with how electrical systems work. 3 years prior to the Florida fire in 2013, a barn that they were using for their Climatech heating and cooling business spontaneously burst into flames. And the article that was in the Carroll County Comment quotes Josh Ayers saying that everything housed in that building is gone. Among items lost, a truck, a forklift, new air conditioning and furnace units, water heaters, ductwork. And imagine this, you guys. Fresh hay had been stored in the upper level the night before, and it contributed to the heavy smoke. Do you think that's just a crazy coincidence? The fire damage was so severe and intense, it was hard to determine the cause. Yes, John, how convenient. That's just a sneak peek into what's going to come with the Florida Fire Department as I continue to investigate the Florida fires. But let's move back to the smelly rats. These men have the audacity to use the name of the father of two fallen police officer Noah Rainey, who died on duty in January of 2022 when his vehicle collided with a pole for unknown reasons. His death is currently under investigation by the Indiana State Police. Doug Carter asks, who's next? I would give my life not to have to ask you that question. But I know you have asked yourself that very question. Because you see, we are all the same. We are all human beings. When you watch that interview at the press conference, actually, where they're all standing on stage, we all know the one. Jerry Holman looks like he's about to just pass out, and Shane Evans looks like he's about to puke. He's the mayor, by the way, for those of you who don't know. They're both sweating bullets. But Doug Carter said, you see, we were all the same. We're all human beings, and we must keep our resolve for Libby and for Abby, for this community, and quite frankly, to ensure good triumphs evil. And it will. 6 years later, 6 deceased children, and these cases are still not solved. Jerry Holman is the lead investigator in the Florida fire as well. I just think there's a lot of questions, and I think we all have to start standing up, talking about them, and calling out what we see. This is not going to end well if we don't, because you can't tell me that there's not something smelly and fishy going on in Carroll County. And when you start having people mess around politically for clout and trying to get who they want in office, that can be a real slippery slope, because we have to ask ourselves why. What is so important? Why do they want their guy in office? What's going on with their guy? The fact that they fought so hard to keep the 911 transcripts from the public in the Florida fire still is something that drives me crazy, because there's got to be a reason. And like I said, that fire department is 500 feet from that house. It's unbelievable to me. Absolutely unbelievable. And with that, that was pretty much what I was going to call out tonight, and get started the conversation. Um, hey, Unsolved Crimes Uncovered. She says, when they didn't realize release the 911 transcripts, tell me perhaps something about the suspected arsonist who was recorded. And the question nobody is asking is, how could this person get into the house? Well, I know that from what I've read, the back door of that house didn't lock. Galen had complained about it. It had not been fixed. There was a work order to fix it, but it had not happened yet. Hey, Qwerty, thank you so very much. Wow. The money that is coming into Carroll County for the Flora and the Delphi cases, you guys have no idea how much money is being funneled into those counties to help investigate these murders. And I don't want to be the one that calls it out and says it's about the money, but somebody, a friend of mine this morning, when I was talking to him on the phone, said to me, you got to follow the money. You got to follow the money. How many times is it the money? So, and you're right, Lisa, volunteer firemen are home and they're not at the station. But most of the time, the volunteer firemen don't live that far away either. And it just begs me, I just think it's hilarious that 2 Carroll County sheriff's officers made it there before any of the firemen. And that's bothersome to me. I think there was a serious problem going on with that fire department, definitely with the captain. He's a Randall. He's related to the fire investigator who, had to up and resign because we all know that he wasn't doing his job. There's just a lot to talk about. There's a lot to unpack and a lot to go over. And it is. Mayor brings up a good point. It's also a race thing, unfortunately. It's not just money. People don't want to talk about race because it's a red area. It's, nobody wants to talk about it because it's a political thing. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't have anything to do with a person of color. But we've talked about it here, and I'll bring it up again. There's a $5,000 reward for Flora. There's a $325,000 reward for Abby and Libby. So don't tell me that there's something not going on there. There's definitely something going on there. Those 4 little girls deserve better. And, they all get federal funding. And it's just like, everybody says, well, the Hatch Act is not that big a deal. It is a big deal. That's why it was put into place, is to prevent these kinds of things from happening. And when you have people that just blatantly disregard it, the nepotism in these small towns, it's there. It's because you have families that have lived there for generation upon generation. And so you're going to have people that are related that hold these offices. Yes, Unsolved Crimes. We've talked about him on this very station. It's so very sad. Yeah, John, the reward for Flora is $5,000. The reward for Delphi is $325,000. It just doesn't make sense. Somebody asked me the other day, are you going to contact the Indianapolis Colts because they gave a lot of money for Delphi? Are you going to contact them and see what they might do for Flora? And yes, I have all intentions of doing that. And he said to me, I'll bet you anything they don't know about Flora. Because it hasn't gotten the coverage. It just hasn't. Yeah, the NAACP wasn't quiet in the beginning. They were all out about this. And it's just, like I said, it's just sad. The girls, those 4 little sisters, deserve better. And they don't have a voice anymore. We have to be their voices. We have to stand up and say, we're not going to take this anymore. We want an explanation. We want you to tell us what the hell is going on in Carroll County. I want to play something for everybody just because I want to remind everyone what he said back then. So just bear with me for a minute. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. And we're going to listen to Robert Ives talk about Delphi in the early days. I hope. So just give me a minute. Thank you guys for being so patient with me tonight. I so appreciate it. Here we go.
The day before. And I can tell you, I at least, and I think most people thought, oh, well, you know, they're hanging out with friends. They've had a fight with mom. No such thing happened. Don't misunderstand me. But we didn't think much about it. And when the next day, when their bodies were found, it was shocking to everybody. It was certainly shocking to me because in Carroll County, such a crime was unprecedented. You know, people kill each other sometimes, but generally it's a crime of passion. It's about boyfriends, girlfriends, husband, wives, or some emotional dispute. We've never had, in my time, I was first prosecutor in 1987. We never had a murder in a robbery or a random murder. You know, we had drunk driving deaths. We had murders of husbands and wives, but nothing like that.
Did you guys hear what he said? He'd been prosecutor in Carroll County since 1987, and they had never had a random murder ever. They had crimes of passion, murders between people who knew each other. I think that's important here. We've had this discussion for 5 years, and there are so many people out there that still are throwing out the narrative that this was a random act.
Like this. And so it was tremendously shocking. And the outpouring of law enforcement support was incredible then, because not only did the FBI come in extreme numbers, but the law enforcement, the police departments of the surrounding counties, the sheriff's departments, the city police departments, they all sent detectives. And in those early days, there were plenty of leads, you know, but there was no great lead. You know, people have asked me sometimes, was there a point where y'all knew who did it, but you couldn't prove it? No. When I was involved, that point was never reached. There was never a time where we thought, this is the person, we just don't have enough to charge. But there was so much physical evidence at the crime, and the crime had been found so immediately after it had been committed, that it's the sort of thing that experienced law enforcement officers, experienced investigators all believe, well, this is going to be solved really quickly. And
did you hear what he said? Hey, Zooter, 15, thank you for joining. Did you guys hear what he said, what Robert said? He said when they looked at that crime scene, they all thought, oh, this is going to be solved in no time. See? That's what they were all thinking that day. And there has to be a reason as to why they were thinking that. And Unsolved Crimes, thank you so much. I certainly appreciate that. If you would email me your email address so that I can we can converse back and forth, that would be wonderful. I think one of my mods can drop my email for you so that you can email me. I certainly appreciate anyone who's willing to help. Let's go ahead and listen to what Robert has to say.
Normally it would be. It's shocking to me that it hasn't been solved today. In today's world, we have cell phone evidence and we have DNA evidence. But if you had been a police officer in 1960 and you had arrived at this crime scene with the traditional physical evidence that was there, and then not to mention the fact, of course, we had video and audio of the person I think certainly killed the girls, you would be certain you were going to catch them within 48 hours. So when you add in the fact that we have evidence today, or we have investigatory methods that we didn't have in the 60s, all police officers, I believe anybody who was involved, I doubt anybody in that first 24 hours had any doubt it was going to be solved within 2-3 days. And
just from the evidence at the scene.
Yes. The circumstances of the crime. Yes. Mm-hmm. And, then after that, what happened was they developed a system where when there were.
So just based on the evidence that was at the crime scene, these officers felt, and they were all there. The officers were there. Robert was there. The FBI was there. They all felt that this crime would be solved. I still go back to this is important. This is not something to gloss over and say, oh, they just were mistaken. There's a reason for this.
Tips, or there were hints, or there were reason to believe somebody was in the neighborhood, they would assign, we had so many officers working on it that the guys they give them sheets, in effect, go find these people and interview them about where they were that day and so on. And so there was this unbelievable manpower, totally unprecedented in my experience, working on this and enthusiastically and passionately. And I would have been certain, if you had asked me at the time, I said, oh, next couple of days, they're going to find a suspect and action's going to be taken. Not because I had.
Next couple of days, he really thought they were going to find a suspect. What everyone tends to forget when we are talking local and when law enforcement is talking local, I'm talking within 75 miles of that crime scene. You have to think about all the little tiny communities that are around that area that are within a half an hour to 45 minutes. To me, that's local. I mean, if you look at your local, quote unquote, local news, wherever it is that you live, a lot of times your local news is encompassing a pretty big geographical area. They're not just talking about Delphi. I do not believe that when they talk local, that they're just talking about the citizens of the city of Delphi. We'll go back to Robert.
Had any particular feeling about a particular thing. It's just because of the circumstances of the crime.
At the scene.
Yes. I've told people before, there were times in those early days, it'd be late at night and guys wouldn't go home because they thought, no, we're going to go out and do this and then we're going to solve this, because that's the perception everybody had. Not because we had necessarily a really good lead, just because it just seemed like, well, of course this is going to be solved. The location is it's not a tourist attraction or anything. If you weren't from around here, you'd have no reason to even know such a place existed. The trail actually terminates at the bridge. The girls had gone out because it was a beautiful day, 52 degrees, as I recall, in February. They just decided we're going to go out for a walk. And I remember at the time I would see on the internet or nationally people saying, I can't believe those girls were out there, as it was the wilderness. you could walk from my office downtown out to where they were in 20 minutes.
So do you see what he's saying? This was not some really isolated place, although where the girls' bodies are found is very isolated. It's in the middle of the woods. So there you go. I don't either, Michelle, but I do believe that possibly somebody he knew did. We know for a fact that he had a party the weekend before at his house on that property the weekend before the murders. It's very possible that somebody he knew has something to do with this. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm running off going, oh my God, this is Garrett Kurtz, because I'm not. But I'm just telling you that there's a lot going on here with the crime scene, where the girls were found, all the things that transpired and happened in this case. And we need to keep our minds open. We need to look at this case completely differently, I think, than we have been. Yes, I definitely believe that Anthony Schatz is important. I believe that the Kleins are important to the case. But I don't think we can disregard some of the other things that are going on here. A staged crime scene speaks to a lot of different things.
Maybe half an hour tops. And you could drive there in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And so it was just on the edge of town. In fact, there were houses. In fact, where the crime scene is, there's a house up on a hill that can actually look down. The backyard can look down and see that house, or the crime scene, I should say.
That is one of the things that has always freaked me out, that somebody's house, the back of someone's house, actually could look right down that hill and see those girls' bodies lying there. You got to remember, it's February. There's nothing on the trees, so you can see a little bit better. You know, when I had Perry on a few weeks back, and we talked about Delphi, we talked about a lot of different things that night. One of the things that Perry brought up in the early days, and we're talking about the early days right now with Robert Ives, is somebody wasn't on the up and up. And I think that one of the things that we have, hey, Brother Yeti, so good to see you. And thank you so much for your shout out about my channel. That was so nice of you. One of the things that we talked about was somebody was trying to throw somebody off of the trail of the killer in the early days. And I believe that we've now learned that Ron Logan was trying to get an alibi for that afternoon. We know that because of the documents. When you have somebody trying to get an alibi before a crime has even been announced that it happened, that's a huge red flag. You can't discount that. There's a reason that that's going on. And for them to say, well, it was his DUI, no, because he did not get that alibi for his morning drive to the dump. That didn't happen. So those are questions that we have to ask. And all the questions, the FBI has a process. A friend of mine told me this. The FBI has a process, and you have to answer all the questions regarding the crime, and the crime scene has to have an answer. You have to have an answer. And once you get those answers is how they can put together what happened. I just think that we have to look at it that way. We have to look at the potential for all these different things, and we have to think outside the box. We have had 5 years to put ourselves inside this tight space of what we think we know. And that's the only thing. We've got blinders like a horse in a horse race has on. And all we want to do is focus here and totally discount everything else. And I just, oh yeah, for sure, Johnny, paperwork can be faked. You are absolutely right. As well as text messages, as well as screenshots, all the things that we've relied on. You know, somebody on Reddit this morning posted, well, Lee Kerr has come out and given their thoughts on what was released by the murder sheet, so we have to listen to them. Really? Come on. How do we even know Lee Kerr's real? We don't. It's just somebody that's come out and told us that they know certain information. There are so many layers to this case. I think it would send even the most seasoned of investigators and detectives into a padded cell for at least a half an hour. Let's finish with Robert. We don't have that much more to go with him. Then we'll get to some talking in the chat.
So the idea that they were someplace dangerous, I wouldn't have hesitated to have my child at that age to be walking out there. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that's shocking about the whole thing. Well, I guess I fear at this point that the most likely thing is, and this is a terrible thing to hope for, is that some other crime would be solved, and the person, as has sometimes happened in the past, the person would say, oh, I committed this crime in Delphi also. I started to say, on the one hand, because it's not a very famous kind of place, I always tend to think it was a local person. But the fact that it's not been solved, and the fact there doesn't appear to be any motivation for it, it appears to be a serial killer type of thing. I'm not saying it is, I don't know, but makes me wonder if it wasn't a random act by somebody who isn't around here all the time. But I don't know. I mean, I'd like to tell you I have a strong feeling about that, but I don't. Early on, I would have said, well, it's surely somebody local, because who would know to be out there? Why would you be out there? Why would you even expect to find any other human beings out there? And
to me, that's important. That's one of the most important things that man has ever uttered. What person, what killer would go hunting in an area where you're very unlikely to find any human beings? They make it sound like the trails were just full of bustling people on a Christmas walk where you're out shopping. It's not that way. Those trails are not like that. It's a very serene, quiet, yes, people go to the trails, but not in droves. The chances of you running into people are not that. Everybody that I've talked to say it's just not that possible. You're more chance of being on that trail alone and not seeing anybody than the other way around. So I think that that's pretty important.
February.
Mm-hmm.
And it's broad daylight. This is something that needs to be emphasized. This is not like these girls were in a back alley in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. They're in broad daylight in Carroll County, Indiana.
Oops. Sorry about that. So yeah, like, you know, we've talked about the type of killer. You know, it was hold on a second, guys. So sorry. Okay, we got that fixed. You know, this killer was Bolden, or killers. These people, whoever they were, I don't necessarily believe that they went to kill. I think things may have gotten out of hand and they ended up in that situation. But again, we won't know that until this case goes to trial. So what is our responsibility then as content creators and people who follow this case, and what is our responsibility to the case? Our responsibility to the case is to make sure that the story continues to stay in the forefront of everyone's minds. There's a lot of reasons people kill Mrs. Thang 65 other than sexual assault, even though the crime could have still been sexual in nature to them, because killing in itself can get certain killers off. That is their pleasure. That's their sexual pleasure, is the actual act itself. It's not necessarily just sexual assault. So that's just something to keep out there. I just don't think that we are looking at a serial killer here at all. I do believe that it's a possibility that the person could have been maybe a budding serial killer, but I think the fact that we haven't seen any more killings or anything like this, this person has gone dormant for a reason. They're laying low for a reason. I think that this was a one and done, in my opinion. And again, that's my opinion, and I could be very wrong. Ooh, what did oh boy. Okay. Thanks, Lisa, for telling me. I got him out of here. But thank you. I definitely think that not necessarily, Susan, not if they wanted somebody to think that Ron Logan was the killer. It would be the perfect place to leave them. So, obviously, I don't think it was stupid at all. It's 5 years later and they still don't have him. That person knew of that area, either because they are connected to Ron Logan or they had been in those woods hunting, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, we have to look at all things and everything. And we have to keep our minds open. Another thing that we have to remember about murder in itself, sometimes we never find out the why, ladies and gentlemen, as to why this happened. Sometimes we never learn that. Sometimes we never get to know what the motive may have been. And we need to be prepared for that. We may not find that out. Mayor's right. The girls could have been in the wrong place at the wrong time and saw something they shouldn't. That's very possible. I don't think that that's what happened, but it is possible. Anna, that's so true. It's a wonder no one has ever fallen off the high bridge. Garrett Kurtz talked about crossing the bridge while drunk at a party. Miracle, no one has fallen off or through it. I can't even imagine on a windy day, on a good day, I mean, anything. I can't imagine how that must be up there. I have such a fear of heights. There is no way. I couldn't even crawl across the bridge my anxiety would be so through the roof. There's just no way. And with the holes, I mean, Anthony Greeno showed us the huge holes that are in those railroad ties. No, I just couldn't do that. I believe that the girls were targeted in some fashion by someone. And sadly, I do believe that. But anyway, going back to the conversation with the murder sheet and what they've put out, we have to be very careful about this information and how people put it out there, because a good defense attorney will tear this case apart. A judge will throw out evidence. They will throw out things because they consider it tainted, because it's been all over social media and everybody's talked about it. And all it takes now is for them to catch the killer, arrest him, take him to trial, and have his defense attorney stand up in front of those 12 jurors and say, well, ladies and gentlemen, you saw on social media where they posted the affidavit and all the reasons they thought it was Ron Logan. So why in the world are we here today? Not only that, but they thought it was Garrett Kurtz. They thought it was Daniel Nations. They thought it was Eldritch. They thought it was, the list goes on and on. We have never had, and I've never seen a case with so many possible suspects. And there's a reason for that as well. I just, I go back to, I don't want to go there and be a conspiracy theorist. I don't want to go there and say, out on a limb and say, wow, they don't want this case solved because of money, because they have so much money coming into the county right now with it unsolved. I don't want to think that those men running that county have those kinds of hardened hearts. I don't want to believe that in people. I don't want to believe that about human beings when we're talking about the deaths of children, especially. But I think we really have to start asking some serious questions about things that are going on in this community and this county, and why things are being released, how these things are getting released, who's giving up these documents. This is not something that I think law enforcement would be happy about. I think that these things bother them. Nadia says she has a feeling they're protecting the killer. Believe me. I don't know if they're protecting the killer, but boy, what if it was as simple as they have really screwed up so badly that they don't want anybody to know how badly? It could be just that. Robin says, I like your thoughts and content. I'm not trying to be rude, but are you aware that you say every 3 or 4 words? It's distracting. I usually dip out after a few minutes, but I'd like to listen. Well, thank you so much, Robin. I have been told that before. I am aware of it, but it's how I speak. I do apologize. Anna Lisette says, backstory on the affidavit is that Ron Logan gave this copy to HLN, and HLN provided it to those who just released it. Yeah, I actually heard a couple of people this morning do a live stream. I think they did a live stream last night. I'm not going to mention who it was, but they were talking about HLN and CNN and how they feel that they've not been good for the case either. I was kind of surprised by that. And they said, especially if Barbara McDonald gave those documents up after being given them, and why would you do that? I don't know. I just know that we've talked about it. Hey, little Pookie, it's so good to see you. Qwerty, are you kidding me? Thank you so much. Thank you, Unsolved Crimes. She says, I say because I'm thinking and reading thoughts and comments. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes it's hard. Mayor, thank you so much for coming. I know that you have to be up early. Have a good night. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, you know, Nick, I get that way too. My anxiety comes out sometimes, and I think it's my that's my anxiety. But I really do try to work on it and not drive people crazy. Yes, live streaming is more difficult than it looks, Brother of Yeti, for sure. It's not an easy thing, but it gets easier as you do it. I remember the first time I live streamed and I was all over the place. I do feel like I've gotten a little better. Thank you, John. John says, this case requires a lot of moments, Kristen. It certainly does. Or at least head slamming against the wall going, what? Daisy says, do you know how hard it is to do a live show by yourself? Kristen rocks like a pro. Daisy, you're really nice. Thank you. Anna says, Kagan Klein's police interrogation was reportedly downloaded twice before the murder sheet got it. They presented a redacted version, but quickly others shared non-redacted versions. Yeah, that did happen. That was unfortunate because those unredacted copies can do so much damage to innocent people. And it really makes me sad to even think about that. You know, doxing people is a real thing, and it's a dangerous thing. Anna says, I have an idea. Some are working behind the scenes, going around law enforcement, getting information to the public. Looks like a bunch of corruption will be exposed. I hope so. I hope that could be what's happening. I just don't want to see it hurt and taint the case. I don't want to see it ruin it to the point that Bridge Guy won't get his day in court and get what he deserves. Hi CJK, I didn't see you come in, but thank you. Like with the previous documents that were released by error where the murder sheet lawyer came across them before he told law enforcement about them, and then they were removed from the public. Yes, they were removed rapidly from the public. Alicia, thank you so much. No, Digital, the FBI is not off the case. As far as I know, the FBI is still working this case, as is the U.S. Marshals are working the case. That's per Doug Carter in February of this year when he was I don't know. I just feel like, you know, he really told us a lot around the anniversary, and he told us who was working this case. He also told us that they were going to need 60 to 70 more police officers as well. That's the big question, Nadia, is Delphi and Flora, are they linked? I can tell you that the same characters are all around them politically. That's disturbing to me when we have so many things that were unethical happening in Flora. And I think with the new information about the unethical things going around the sheriff's election in Delphi now, yeah. I'm like, Lipsha, that's hilarious. Lipsha says, dang, at Qwerty, can we get you a drink or anything? I wish I could get them a drink. Little Pookie, you wouldn't think so. When I interviewed Kevin, I really felt like he was a good guy. I don't know if maybe they're being manipulated by someone into doing this stuff. I really don't. But all I can say is, they have to be held to a higher standard. We're talking about a professional investigative reporter, and we're talking about, or journalist, and we're talking about a lawyer. And if you're not familiar with the wall or the law or whatever, you need to be in this situation. Yes, GBI has already done one peer review. They did it in late 2018 and the beginning of 2019. And that is what led to the 2019 April 22nd press conference, where we got the new direction. Just Pam, initially the FBI person involved was the same one that knew about the Larry Nassar gymnastics sexual assault for 8 months and did nothing. And he still has his job. He is on the chopping block, though, Just Pam, just so you know. He is going to probably lose his job. He is there's two that are going to lose their job over that, and he's one of them. But you are correct. He was the FBI person that was involved with the whole Larry Nassar stuff. Qwerty, wow. I love whiskey as well. I like single malt, so I wish I could give you a single malt about right now. Ives resigned in November of 2017 is when Ives resigned. So a year after Flora. I think Carter gives out clues every time he talks, but people just don't listen to him. Digital, I don't know why Robert Ives retired. I don't have a clue about that. Small town crimes are wild. I will tell you, if you guys want to watch a really good documentary on small town corruption and small town law enforcement that is the good old boys system, go watch the documentary on Ada, Oklahoma. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it. It's out there on Netflix. I firmly believe it's still out there, and everyone should see that. It will open your eyes to what happens in small town rural America. Things that people won't even believe happens. Miss Thang says, MS had mentioned before they asked Kagan Klein for an interview. He didn't say no, but I doubt his public defender would let him do it. Yes. He was told after the HLN interview by his attorneys, no more interviews, Kagan, because he didn't look good in that interview. Who all agrees with me on that? That Kagan did not come across well on his interview with HLN. Hey, Alicia, how are you? So good to see you. Johnny Kramer, I agree. Carter's saying that there aren't going to singularly identify anyone at this time, at least not publicly, was very interesting. I don't think that they're ready to do that, quite frankly. And I think when they are, that's what they will do. Let's see. Towns and cities are the smallest self-governing entities in the U.S. Thus, small, dirty, corrupt little towns continue to exist. Self-governing entities are the worst. And they are. And I think, like I said, once you start having a lot of nepotism leaking in, people, I saw somebody in chat earlier ask, what's the whole deal with why the mayor, Sean Evans, resigned and moved to the prosecutor's office so that he could be with his buddy, Nick McClelland. For those of you that don't know, when Sean Evans was in law school, he clerked for Nick McClelland. And Nick McClelland gave him a job right out of law school. So yeah, they're quite close. And it is interesting to me that he would step down as mayor to go work in the prosecutor's office so that he would have all of the ins and outs of the Delphi murders. Lesenby said it, and so did Doug Carter. Arrests will shock this community. I don't know. When they say that, I hang on to that because I think it's something big. But at the same time, one of the things that I'm saying is that I only hope and pray that it is not someone the family knows or that was close to the family. Because I think that will be absolutely more devastating to them. And it's kind of hard to wonder what that means when they say that. I know Anna, when she was interviewed on the 5th anniversary, she said that she hoped that it was not somebody they knew. Johnny says, I'm up north Indiana, and it's always in the paper, meth, drugs, guns, ladies, trafficked, biker clubs. It might be everything the FBI was saying. I mean, we know for a fact that they have uncovered the largest CSAM ring in the history of Indiana because of the Delphi investigation. I just read today where they rounded up 15 more men down in Johnson County for CSAM. They just keep getting more of them, and that will continue, guaranteed. The people out there that are doing this in Indiana that think that they are safe and, okay, and they're not going to get caught, they're coming for you. Hey, Mbake, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. Thank you for coming in. He interned in high school also. Interesting. Wow. So they do have a really strong relationship. I know, Candy. It's one of my fears as well. I go back to what when I was doing some research for one of my lives last week, and I was looking at statistics for murder. I think it's somewhere upwards of 75 to 80% or even higher of murders are by people you know. I mean, that's a huge percentage. Did Sean Evans' mom work in the prosecutor's office as well? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Does anybody in chat know? Digital's question is, did Shane Evans' mom work in the prosecutor's office? Yeah, they do want a confession, Tech Death. And that's one reason why they're keeping all of the stuff about the crime scene hidden, is because they want them to be able to confess and tell them what they did and what happened in those woods. And that's why they don't want to let that stuff out. And I definitely think it has something to do with an alibi. Yeah, Lipsha said, statistically speaking, the majority are not committed by strangers. Yes, it's very unlikely that you would ever be murdered by a stranger. Anna says, the Delphi crime doesn't make sense at any level. A desperate, stupid crime in broad daylight in a public place. The killer got lucky. Stupid luck. I don't know if it's luck necessarily, or if they're a lot smarter than we give them credit for. Did you lose another pig, Tech Death? Hey, you guys, I just want to let you know the music that you listened to in my intro, that was Tech Death's music. And you're going to get to hear his music in the outro tonight when I leave. He also has done that music for me. You guys need to go check him out. If one of my mods could drop his channel in the chat, I would really like it if you guys would go check out his music. He's really, really talented, you guys. Michelle, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that you were able to be here and give us your expertise. Thank you, and you sleep well and have a good night. Yes, because the prosecution could be hindered if the details are released. Yes. As I've said, those things are real. It's not just us saying it. It's the truth. I definitely think so, Nick. I think he was a chance taker. I think he's a risk taker. I think he probably likes that feeling of that rush that they get from taking those risks. Most definitely. Yeah, an adrenaline junkie. Hey, K.A., good to see you. Hold on a minute, and I can grab it real quick. Because I definitely want to get it in there for him. Just give me a moment, you guys. Because it's important to me. Oh. There they are. Looks like it's weird. There he is. Copy. Thank you, Perry. You guys need to go. That's Tech Death. I just dropped Tech Death's channel link in the description, or I'll put it in the description box as well. You guys also need to check out Cop Facts, which is Perry Freeman. And Perry is a retired detective, and he is amazing. And he did a really great short film that depicts stories of real human trafficking. I highly recommend that you guys watch that if you haven't seen it. And I'm going to put his link up as well while he's in here with us. So make sure you go out and subscribe if you haven't to his channel. He's got some great information. And he is really laid back and a great way of disseminating information to us. I always like to call out the great ones that really give us good information and have things that we can truly, truly learn from them. Good night, Truth Justice. Thank you so much for coming. I certainly appreciate it. So, you guys, I really just wanted to get that information out there and just let you know how I was feeling about the stuff that happened with the murder sheet. Yes, I bought into that. I had them on my show. I interviewed them. I talked about all the stuff that they were doing with Anthony Schatz and Kegan Kline and all of it. And I thought, wow, this is great information. And I thought it was okay to a degree, although part of me didn't. I didn't listen to that part of me, and I should have. But I am now. And like I said, after last night and after some real soul searching and talking to myself about it, I just realized that it wasn't the thing I wanted to do. I don't want to promote it. I don't want to make it seem like it's an okay thing that we are doing this. We're here to cover the case and talk about it and keep it out in the open, but we are not law enforcement. We are not investigators. We aren't. We can like to think we are, but we truly are not. And it isn't our place to do that. Now, with that being said, if my good friend Gonzo is still in here, yeah, he goes out and investigates. Perry is somebody that I would say, yeah, he's an investigator because he's retired police officer. He was a detective. He was undercover in biker gangs. He has a history and knows what happens in these cases. But for the rest of us, we, have day jobs and we do this, as a hobby or whatever you want to say. It's just not something that we should be participating in. I don't think this case is going to be solved by somebody on YouTube. I don't think that this case is going to be solved by somebody on Reddit. Is it possible that somebody might send in a tip that could help? Of course. And that's why this is scrolling at the bottom of my screen, because somebody out there knows something. And Doug Carter has been screaming that at us for 5 years, that somebody knows. And you know who that somebody is? It's the people who know who Bridge Guy is. There's somebody that looks at that video of Bridge Guy on the bridge. They know who that is up there. Because you would know if that was your brother or your husband or your uncle or your dad or your best friend or the guy that works next to you all day or your next door neighbor or the guy who sits next to you at church every Sunday. That's why they put that stuff out there. That's why they did the sketches. Those things were done for people who know the suspect, not for just all of us to go, start grabbing pictures off of Facebook or yearbooks and start pointing to people and say, look, he looks like this guy and he looks like this guy. That's not what we're supposed to be doing, for sure. I think there's a number of reasons why he hasn't been caught yet. I think that they know who he is. I do believe that. In my mind, I believe that law enforcement knows. I believe they are working at putting the case together. I believe that this case will be solved this year. I firmly and absolutely believe that. And I hope I'm not wrong. I think that there's a lot that goes into building these cases. We've talked about the murder book and all the things that go into that, and all the interviews and the canvassing and the evidence and everything that they have to do. And then they have to go back through that, and they have to make sure that everything is in order and everything, they've gotten everything that they needed before they present that to the prosecutor. And they may very well have presented things to the prosecutor already. And he may have told them, look, guys, you need this and this yet. Go back and get it. And that's very possible as to what could be happening here. I think Bridge Guy's luck's about to run out. Doug Carter told him in February, he looked right at the camera, we know a lot about you. In fact, we know a lot about you. And sleep well. Yeah, Perry did say that they need to talk more about witness protection. Come out and talk and let people know what that means. If you come forward and talk, we will protect you. We will make sure that you are protected, because anybody who is willing to kill 2 teenage girls in broad daylight in the manner in which they did are extremely dangerous individuals. Whoever this is, they're extremely dangerous. And don't forget that. One of the things, there is a hunting season in February, Little Pookie. Red and gray fox. Lynn, I kind of think that's interesting. Sleep well, Kagan Klein saying, waiting for his dad to fall asleep. Yeah. Johnny says they're covering up for the real killer and trying to set up someone for it if they had ties with police, maybe. I hope not. But it's possible. They do talk to him every time they're on camera. Justin says, just the fact that the video still hasn't led to someone coming forward makes me still wonder if the killer is someone who studied the area but isn't local and only came to commit the crime and fled. That's very possible, but I doubt it. So, yeah. It would be really nice to see some documentaries, some big documentaries done on the Florida fires. I would really like to see that. It's still, like I said, this fire has been ruled arson, and we're getting ready to be into the 6th year in November that these girls still have no justice. And I just really wish someone would cover their case in a documentary. Speaking of which, I do want to let you guys know a couple things that's happening before I get off of here. I'm going to be covering a new case on Thursday night. I'm going to be introducing a case that is close to me and where I live. And it's a 13-year-old boy who went missing in 2016. His name was Robert B. Jr., and he went by Bonsai. And 6 months later, he was found murdered. His body was found. He still has no justice. It's an extremely sad case. It's in one of those small rural towns that you hear about in the Midwest. It's also a town that also used to be called a sundown town, if you know what that is. So a lot of racism in that town. Robert is white, however. But the Good Old Boy Network lives and breathes there in this town. So I'm going to be covering his case on Thursday. And then on Tuesday of next week, I'm going to have Ash from Ashes to Ash TV. If you're not familiar with her, she does have a YouTube channel, but she makes short films. She also did a short film on Robert B.'s case where she came here and she investigated, and her whole second season was all about Robert. She's amazing. And I'm so excited that I'm going to have her on to talk about us, or to talk with us, and to talk about his case. Just to bring that out to the forefront a little bit. So those are a couple things that are coming up. For those of you who are new here, I do have a channel membership, so please feel free to join if you are so inclined. I'm going to have some member-only things that I'm going to be doing for you guys. We're going to have some special chats, some special guests for my members only as well. Those are things that I'm working on now. I've really gotten to like doing the interviews. I think it brings a really good perspective to a YouTube channel when you can get people to come in and talk about what they do and how they make a difference in these cases. So I've really been enjoying that. So I'm looking for more people to do interviews with. On the 27th of May, I do have the captain from True Crime Garage who will be joining us with Skip Jansen. They have not been together since last August when the True Crime Garage podcast came out. So that's going to be a little bit interesting. They're looking forward to coming. It will be a complete Q&A, question and answer only, from the chat. So that's how that's going to work. I'm not going to be interviewing them that night. You guys are going to be asking them questions. Hey, Lynn, thank you so much for joining. I certainly do appreciate that. So those are some of the things that are upcoming. The other thing I wanted to say, if you guys are looking for good things to be reading, I just got a really good book. It's called If You Tell, and it's by Greg Olson. And it was a New York bestseller. It's really, really supposed to be a fantastic read, and I'm really looking forward to it. This was a book that was put out, I think it was last week. Nick from True Crime Garage tweeted about it, and he was like, you guys need to get this book. I went and looked it up, and it looked really good. So I ordered the book, and I put a shout out to him and thanked him for telling me about the book. And Greg Olson, the author, just started following me on Twitter. So I thought that was pretty cool. The other book that there's two others I want to tell you about before I get out of here tonight. And the other book I want to tell you about that I'm reading, I'm almost halfway through it, is Unmasked, My Life Solving America's Cold Cases by Paul Holes. For those of you who don't know who Paul Holes is, he was the detective who found the Golden State Killer. And this is basically a memoir of investigating his toughest cold cases and the toll that took on him. It's really, really good. So you guys, there's that. And then House Secrets. Everyone has a secret. Some you don't want to know. And this is a novel by Perry Freeman, who is Cop Facts. You saw him in the channel a little bit ago. And he wrote this book. And let me tell you, it's about an undercover narcotics detective named Eddie Delordo. And it is a fantastic book. I have so enjoyed reading this book. So you can find that book out on Amazon. And I did tell you guys that one of the things that we're going to be doing is a book club. And you guys all said you were interested. So I hope you guys are. But we'll be choosing a book to read, and then we can talk about it each week. We'll talk about the book. So yeah, looking forward to that. But anyway, that's all I really had for tonight, you guys. I so appreciate everybody who was here. Jennifer, thank you so much for everything. I do hope you feel better. Unsolved Crimes, I'm so glad that you came. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and I definitely will be talking to you when I get your email. Digital, you still need to send me that URL so that I can get you added. And yeah, to everybody who joined tonight, thank you. Everybody who sent in super stickers, thank you. Perry, you are so welcome. Everybody have a great night and a great rest of your week. I will see you on Thursday night. I usually am live around 8. So for those of you that don't know. But I've really enjoyed it. I'm going to hop off here. Please don't leave until you've listened to Tech Desk exit music, because it's super great. You all have a great and blessed week. And be safe out there, everyone.